Good afternoon, you're welcome, and thank you for joining us on the news update. We are coming to you live from Stephen Amate Close, Nima, and also streaming live on YouTube at Daily Guide Network. My name is Jeffrey Boateng, and these are the headlines. President John Dramani chairs National Security Council meeting on recent floods that affected 7 regions of the country. Vice President urges public institutions to prioritize citizen experience. Also in Parliament, minority opposes revival of tribunal courts, warns against political persecution. Also, Ghana secures US $28 million South Korean support to expand STEM education. And in Kumasi, the KMA demolition exercise at Asafo turns chaotic as squatters attack officials with stones. We have the details of our top stories coming up. Please stay tuned. And for our first story, President John Dramani Mahama on July 8 chaired a National Security Council meeting on the recent floods that affected 7 regions of the country. At the meeting, the president was briefed by the head of the Post-Flood Mitigation Task Force, Brigadier Okayeboa, and leaders of the subcommittees. According to him, although flooding is a natural occurrence, its effect can be reduced. President Mahama noted that although a flood mitigation task force was set up last year, the work they did was limited.
In the aftermath of the floods that affected a lot of the southern coastal part of our country, I deemed it necessary for us to have a national security meeting to discuss the issues arising out of that natural disaster. It's become a recurring incident, but of course this was far worse than any that we have seen, both because of the vagaries of climate change. It looks like increasingly every year the rainfall is getting heavier, and it means that we have to see what mitigation measures to put in place. And so aside from that too, the pressures of urbanization, Accra being the capital, it is expanding at a very alarming rate. And the desire for land to build is increasingly making people encroach into areas that were formerly reserved for the passage of water and the containment of water. And so, of course, we've asked the Army to get involved in the flood mitigation measures, and then also NADMO and others are involved in relief, spreading of relief items. And so we want to look at what's been happening so far and what the measures we have to put in place going forward would be. Of course, we set up a task force before the incident occurred. They did some limited work in terms of dredging some of the waterways, but I mean, the amount of rainfall that fell this time, it was very difficult to contain. Happily, the Minister of Finance has release some money from the contingency fund for us to be able to finance the mitigation measures going forward. We might not be able to completely eliminate flooding because it's a natural disaster that happens not only in our part of the world, it happens in other areas, but we can minimize it and make its effect less disastrous like what happened. In this particular case, all countries from Gabon to Côte d'Ivoire reported flooding and some loss of lives, some much higher than us. And like we Christians say, in everything we give thanks. And we hope that we should be able to work so that we ameliorate the difficulty that people are suffering.
Still in the presidency, the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, Professor Nana Jane Opoku Agyeman, has urged public institutions to measure their performance through citizens' experience rather than internal assessments. Speaking at the launch of the book Citizen Experience, a reset for superior public and civil service delivery, she said reforms in the public sector must go beyond policies and focus on how citizens experience state services.
This last point may be the book's most important contribution. It distinguishes between institutions' self-perception and the image that citizens have built of those institutions. As long as the government focuses primarily on the first, while our citizens judge us by the second, an important gap will remain between us, regardless of how many reform programs we launch or service charters we publish. Again, ladies and gentlemen, imagine a performance review of a public institution. Budgets are examined, attendance is discussed, projects are completed on schedule, and we celebrate. The meeting lasts about 90 minutes, assuming, of course, that it starts on time. Yet, many may not take the time to ask, what was the experience of people of this project?
Let's take you to Parliament, where the Minority Caucus has opposed the reintroduction of the tribunal courts, arguing that it could become an avenue for creating jobs for party loyalists to jail opponents. The caucus insists that the existing court structure under the Fourth Republic, which includes district magistrate courts, circuit courts, high courts, the Court of Appeal, and the Supreme Court, should rather be strengthened to improve justice delivery. Contributing to the debate on the Tribunals Bill 2026, the Member of Parliament for Damango, Samuel Jinapo, questioned the need for establishing additional courts when the current judicial institutions could be expanded and better resourced. He argued that instead of creating new judicial bodies, the government should invest in building more court facilities, appointing more judges, and recruiting additional judicial staff to address the delays in the justice system.
Why additional courts? Mr. Speaker, with the greatest of respect, why do we like to create new institutions every now and again? We have high courts. Why have regional tribunals? If you want to have more courts, you want to have more judges, you want to have more judicial staff, just follow up with what President Akufo-Addo did when he built almost 100 courts complex in our country. Build more court complexes, recruit more judges, recruit more judicial staffs. And if you want a jury system, let's have a jury system. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to believe this is job for the boys. I don't want to believe that. I don't want to believe this is job for the boys. It shouldn't be. And Mr. Speaker, the point, I don't want to believe that we want to recruit some lawyers from certain courtesses and make them chairpersons of regional tribunals, and get 2 people to become members of regional tribunals and get jobs and have some with Mr. Speaker, with respect, some kangaroo system where opponents of the administration will be run through a certain judicial system and jailed. We don't want that. Let's have the existing court system. Let's have the district magistrate court, the circuit court, the high court, the Court of Appeal, the Supreme Court. That is the judicial system in all civilized, developed countries in the world. We do not want regional tribunals. They bring about bad memories, scary memories, and bad dreams and intimidation in our country. Let's reject it. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Meanwhile, on the same subject, the Attorney General, Dr. Dominic Ayene, says the reintroduction of the tribunal court system is aimed at providing Ghanaians with greater access to the justice delivery system and easing the backlog of cases. The Tribunals Bill 2026 seeks to provide for the establishment, jurisdiction, composition, and operation of tribunals, as well as establish a tribunal oversight committee.
There's a textual basis for the establishment of the tribunals to supplement the work of the current judiciary. Mr. Speaker, as I hinted earlier, the idea of bringing back the tribunals is first of all to allow for the participation of ordinary citizens in the administration of justice. Currently, but for the existence of the jury system, ordinary citizens do not participate in the administration of justice. What we are proposing to do is to allow for a panel system chaired by a chairman of the tribunal that will be a lawyer, equivalent to someone who could be appointed to become to be a justice of the High Court for the regional tribunals, and then also lawyers that qualify to be appointed to head, or to be justices of the Circuit Court, to be the chairpersons of the district tribunals. And then we will have panel members, as it used to be in the past under the PNDC Law 78, so that they will be the representatives of the people participating in the administration of justice.
Still in government business, the Minister for Roads and Highways, Kwame Governs Agboja, has urged Maripoma Enterprise Limited, the contractor responsible for the construction of the Dambai Bridge, to ensure the project is completed on schedule, within budget, and without compromising on the quality. The minister underscored the strategic importance of the bridge to the OT region, noting that it will improve connectivity, facilitate the movement of people and goods, and support economic activities in Dabai and surrounding communities. Speaking during an inspection of the project as part of his nationwide road inspection tour of the OT region, Governs Agboja urged the contractor to remain focused on timely delivery while maintaining strict adherence to quality specifications, stressing that government expects the project to provide long-term benefits for residents and road users in the region.
So I deliberately asked what has been the challenge you had, or what problem do you foresee? And on both occasions you said you didn't have one and you don't expect to have one. Many times we see projects start and Ghanaians begin to complain that the works have slowed down and no one explains the situation to them. We will not sit down for anybody to delay this project. This project must be completed on schedule. The first step is to make sure we award the job on time, and then the next thing we did was to pay mobilization, which was not characteristic of previous works because government was no longer paying that. Then the third one is that you notice that we are constantly moving to the site to meet the contractors. If there are issues, we deal with them. So far, we don't envisage that any big push contract should go beyond the period we've given them. Whether 36 months or 40 months is a lot of time to be able to do this work. Don't forget, this is not the biggest. The biggest is a chairman for which is over 3 kilometers, and that contractor is also working. We'll be visiting that site also in due course. They are using a different strategy to do the bridge. But let's see whether the two strategies, if it works, becomes a template for us. These two bridges will be the longest bridges we have ever done in our country. Until we started a chairman for, this was the longest, about 1.5 kilometers. Until we started a chairman for, which is over 3 kilometers. And that is...
In more news, the Ministry of Education has secured a $28 million funding facility from the government of South Korea to expand science, technology, engineering, and maths, also known as STEM infrastructure in the Ashanti and Northern regions. Education Minister Haruna Idrisu announced the funding during a meeting with South Korea's ambassador to Ghana, Park Kyung-sik, in Accra. The investment marks the second phase of a long-standing partnership between the two countries aimed at strengthening STEM education and preparing young people for a technology-driven economy. According to the minister, the funding will support the construction and equipping of new STEM facilities, building on earlier projects completed in the Eastern, Greater Accra, and other regions. The government says the initiative will improve access to quality science and technology education and help equip more students with skills for careers in innovation and engineering. For some news from the Ashanti region, a demolition exercise by the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly at an illegal settlement behind Cocoa Board at Asafo turned violent on Wednesday, July 8, 2026, as the squatters attacked assembly officials and security personnel with stones and sticks. The operation, led by Kumasi Mayor Richard Ofori Ajimamboedi, targeted what authorities described as one of the city's notorious hubs for drug trafficking and prostitution. The area has also been identified as a flood-prone zone with illegal structures blamed for obstructing the flow of Sabine River and increasing the risk of flooding in Asafo Market and surrounding communities. Despite the presence of heavily armed security personnel, the demolition team was met with fierce resistance from some of the squatters. Several KMA vehicles were damaged during the clash, while some personnel sustained injuries. The Assembly has since lodged a formal complaint with the railway police over the incident. Speaking to the media, Mayor Richard Ofori Ajiman Boedi mentioned that the violence will not deter the Assembly from continuing the exercise.
Okay, so we are making sure that structures that are illegally placed in areas that give the environment negative impact are cleared, especially those that may have impact on drains and waterways. And you'd agree that the Subin drain is just around that particular area, and we want to go and desilt particular portion, but then we have come to identify a lot of illegal structures there. And so intention is to clear them up to where the Church of Pentecost building is, where Puku Seekers Hotel is. And then once we're able to clear all these places, we can sanitize the area and then have access to areas that we have to silt and desalt, just so we can prevent flooding in areas that we identify potential for flooding. Some of our vehicles have been vandalized. We have lost one pickup in the process. Machine, every DTA machine that we sent to the excavator is being vandalized. We'll come back with the equipment. Those that we can repair and put them back to work, we'll immediately repair them and put them back to work. And there's no way I'll sit down for illegality to overcome me.
How many people were injured?
So far, about, I think, 3 or 4. Yeah.
Police also?
City guards, and some other officers.
So how about their condition right now?
So they are the police station. They are taking their statements. They'll give them medical forms, and then we'll take them to the hospital for them to be given medical care, and then the investigation will continue.
We'll take a quick break and be back with more stories here on The Update. Please stay tuned. Welcome back. You are still tuned in to the news updates on DGN, also streaming live on YouTube at Daily Guide Network. My name is Jeffery Boateng. In more stories this afternoon, President John Dramani Mahama has said that his government will use artificial intelligence to improve tax collection as part of efforts to increase revenue without introducing new taxes. Speaking during a meeting with the Kwawu Business Advocacy Group at the Jubilee House on July 8th, President Mahama said the government is focusing on improving the efficiency of tax collection rather than placing additional tax burdens on businesses and Ghanaians. The president further noted that efficiency in taxation would also result in businesses being relieved of tax burdens.
I also touch on taxes. Since we came, we've removed some of the taxes that Ghanaians described as nuisance taxes. And so the COVID levy is gone, the E-levy is gone, and we're working to rationalize the other taxes. And so overall, the indirect taxes, that is value-added taxes, have come down from 21-point-something% to 20%. Now we're concentrating on efficiency in collecting the taxes, because we believe that if we collect the taxes more efficiently, we don't need to introduce new taxes. And so what we're concentrating on is efficiency in collecting the taxes. And I'm sure that if we collect the taxes more efficiently and government is making more revenue, we can begin to bring down the incidence of tax and the burden on our people. I believe that in a few years, if in the next 2-3 years, our efficiency in collecting taxes is improving, I mean, there's no reason why we can't reduce the corporate income tax and bring it lower so that business people can be able to reinvest some of the money that they pay to the government. And so we will continue to work with you when we introduce new technologies. Now AI is a watchword. And so when we start AI in VAT collection, AI in corporate income tax collection, please don't be afraid, because if it increases revenue and is doing well, then we can reduce the corporate income tax, we can reduce the VAT rate. And so media, don't see I said we are reducing it. I said if in future we collect more efficiently, then we can give the benefits to businesses by reducing the taxes. I don't want you to say government to reduce VAT and
into the world of business. Latest data from the Bank of Ghana's 2025 fraud report shows that the number of employees implicated in fraud across banks and specialized deposit-taking institutions declined by 40%, dropping from 365 in 2024 to 219 in 2025. The decline comes at a time when Ghana's financial sector recorded a significant rise in overall fraud cases during the year, driven largely by a surge in electronic fraud within the payment service provider sector. Despite the reduction in staff-related fraud cases, the total value at risk from fraud across banks and SDIs increased to 101 million Ghana cedis, underscoring the continued financial exposure associated with fraudulent activities. The reduction in employee involvement in fraud points to improved internal controls, stronger monitoring systems, and enhanced oversight mechanisms within the financial institutions. The report indicated that fraud incidents recorded by banks declined by 34%, while SDIs recorded a 47% reduction in reported cases, suggesting that strengthened internal processes may be contributing to the decline in staff-related misconduct. While the decline in staff involvement reflects progress in strengthening institutional resilience, the continued financial impact of internal cash-related fraud highlights the need for improved monitoring systems, stronger accountability measures, and proactive interventions to protect confidence in Ghana's financial sector. We turn our attention to some sports news now, as the United States Federal Bureau of Investigation is investigating the Argentine Football Association over allegations of money laundering and bank fraud involving more than $300 million, according to the Argentine newspaper La Nación. The report says federal prosecutors are examining financial transactions handled by the Tor Pro Enter LLC, the company responsible for managing the association's international commercial revenue, including sponsorship and media right deals. Investigators are reportedly reviewing transfers worth more than $300 million to determine whether any transactions violated U.S. laws. No criminal charges have been filed against the Argentine Football Association or any of its officials, and the investigation remains at an early stage. Under U.S. law, the existence of an investigation does not imply wrongdoing. The reported probe is also linked to Argentina's participation in the 2026 FIFA World Cup. On the foreign front, Russia will continue to provide military backing to the junta-led governments of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, which have formed a breakaway regional alliance that has strained ties with the West African sub-region. In a joint statement during a visit to Niger by Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, the Alliance of Sahel States and the Russians said Moscow would continue to support and strengthen the operational capacities of AES member states and armed forces. Lavrov was in Niamey to attend a high-level meeting with the foreign ministers of the three West African countries, following up on a similar format meeting in April 2025 in Moscow. Russia and its African Corps paramilitaries are helping the AES countries fight jihadist groups that have killed tens of thousands of people across much of their territories. Moscow is also seeking closer ties with AES countries in the energy and mining sectors. For our last story, Human Rights Watch has denounced a crackdown by authorities in Tunisia on political opponents and human rights activities. It joined United Nations experts and other civil society groups in expressing deep concern about the country's intensifying human rights crisis. 5 years after Tunisia's President Kais Saied seized extraordinary executive powers, it says the situation has deteriorated dramatically. Resurgent authoritarianism has translated into systematic repression of civil society, journalists, political opponents, independent lawyers, and migrants, and the erosion of the rule of law. HRW said Tunisian courts have recently sentenced 8 human rights defenders to prison terms and heavy fines for charges connected to the work. Speaking at the 62nd session of the UN Human Rights Council, it called on the body and member states to break their silence and publicly condemn this repression. It said their failure to do so all but signals a free pass for Tunisia's authorities to continue escalating the crackdown. That'll be all for this afternoon's update. Thank you for staying with us. We'll be back at 6:30 p.m. with the latest reports. Do follow up on our website at www.dailyguidenetwork.com for more updates. This update is brought to you by Telecel Ghana and powered by Press Express. My name is Jeffery Boateng. Do have a good afternoon.